And then the third question is, we were talking about premenopausal, menopausal. So you build all this fat to compensate for losing the uterus natural hormone secretion. So then, when is there any hope to lose all that?
There is. So I'll start with your last question. What we usually see is sort of like this change in physique, right? And that's, of course, when women come in the office because they're like, whoa, like here I was minding my own business and all of a sudden something's not working.
Right.
Some of it is the brain and body working itself out. Well, this is not working. Okay, well, let's rely on fat. Okay, no, we don't really need that anymore. So some of it is that perimenopausal transition where there's just a lot going on and the body's rebalancing itself. Right. Then a lot of women figure out they need a new workout. Their 20 minutes on the elliptical isn't going to cut it anymore. They do need to do something that's either more high intensity or a little bit more demanding. They need to switch up their sports a little bit. I see a lot of women get a lot of benefit there, and then they often like what they find, and they're like, oh, I never would have joined this, but I did, and I liked it, and I found friends, and there's a bunch of us doing the same thing. So usually a change up of a workout does need to happen at some point if it hasn't been enough. I do see things level out a little bit where it was really hard and stubborn to move that weight for 2 to 5 years, and then all of a sudden they were able to make some headway, and then maybe their physique is always a little bit different, but at the same time they feel like, okay, it normalized. It didn't just keep going and going and going. Protein powders can be here or there. Right? I like them as an option for people that don't get enough protein. They're simple. I like them as an option for people to throw into smoothies or to add some protein to their day. You don't have to use them. You could go with real food all the time. Right? But for some people, if it's like, well, I'm either not going to eat it and just go straight to dinner from breakfast, or I could make this shake, it's like, great, do the shake. If you find like it doesn't work for you and it's just always working against you, then it doesn't have to be something you use.
It doesn't feel right anymore. I mean, I used to use them for the past 5 years and it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, then don't use them.
But then, to get the protein supplement, like the amount of protein for weight loss in particular, it's very hard to get.
It is.
I constantly make kebabs and stuff, because...
Well, you can also try, sometimes a protein supplement that I like also is, do you use collagen? Do you guys have the collagen? So the collagen one I like is it kind of disappears. You can add it into other things. Bone broth, which if you don't want to make yourself, they're definitely doing a better job of pre-making it.
I make it all the time.
But bone broth is like 9 grams of protein per cup. So sometimes even adding that into other things, like if that's what you're cooking with, you can really upgrade how much protein is in per meal, and then maybe not have to chase it all day long, right? That will help sometimes.
Yeah.
All right, so sometimes it's, you break it down. If you're mixing up like trail mix, pumpkin seeds are very high in protein. Sometimes also changing the makeup what you're bringing in so it all comes in with something, and then you're not eating and then also looking for protein, right? You try to.
Nuts for me also doesn't feel right. I mean, like the amount of fat. I mean, everything that I thought it was good doesn't feel right.
Doesn't feel right. How?
It doesn't feel right because I don't feel like every time I have it. I mean, it's not like I'm sitting there and binging on it. I used to. That was my late night binging mode. Pistachio bowl of everything. Or mix. And but I can have a handful at night, and it just doesn't. I get up in the morning. I just don't want to eat breakfast. It just doesn't go anywhere.
Okay.
So as a late night snack, nuts, for protein supplement. In terms of protein, I'm having a lot of issues. I'm literally studying, what's protein? I like the brothing. That's what I'm doing because it's culturally, that's what I'm Persian, so we do brothing all the time. So I'm incorporating more of that. Although it's hard, you have to let it brew first.
Well, that's why they have some that are pre-made now that, in a pinch you could grab. Whole Foods yesterday, there was a whole bunch of stuff in the cooler that I was amazed how many more brands have popped up overnight. They had Pacifica and they had something else, and then there's a whole bunch. So, they're just options without being another food, right? Sometimes people just need to bring in a little bit of something without an 80th meal of the day. So you could try that. If protein supplements aren't sitting well, I would first run through a range of them. Try egg white. Try collagen, try pea protein, and if at the end of it you're like, it's just not my thing, then don't do it. Right? Not everything is going to work for every person, for sure.
Since you're talking about protein, can you touch base on how much protein you recommend?
So that's a little bit of a variety, but I would say a high-level athlete who's training 5-6 days a week at a high level and trying to maintain, they're going to do 1 gram of of protein per pound of body weight, right? So that's going to be a 1-to-1.
That's a lot of protein.
What's that?
That's a lot of protein. For example, for my weight, if I go 1-to-1,
Are you competing?
no.
Okay, then that's not for you, right? High-level athletes. So if you're talking about, Lance Armstrong, things like that, he's going to have to hit at least 1/1, maybe even more, to give him the best recovery, et cetera. So that's, think of like those are like the upper limit people, right? We can run various formulas on things, but I would say the average, the minimum I would want someone to start out at. Yes, yeah, thank you. Put it that way, half your body weight in grams. Yes, if you weigh 160 pounds, then 80 is the grams you're going for.
Same way we go with water, half of your body weight in ounces.
Yeah, and that's your minimum. So if you eat that and you feel good and you feel satiated, then that's fine. If you feel like your recovery still isn't great or you're still hungry, you can absolutely go up from there. And that's going to measure on what is your intensity? And if you're training for stuff more, you're going to need more, right? That's going to need to go up.
I'm kind of stuck between, I can't feed into the number of the protein I'm supposed to take. And then I honestly am beginning to think that I'm not sure about all this protein business these days. It's just too much. I mean, if you're going to sit there and just feed your body with the protein, it just doesn't make any sense. If you're just sitting, well, yeah, it should be balanced. You should have a lot of vegetation. So when you move, sorry, probably noisy. When you move to more protein, it should be that you're active, and it should be very much balanced with vegetation. The idea is not to have just the steak and the garnish, right? It should be heaping plates of vegetables. One phrase I've heard someone use is the paleo pig, when they move people to more of a paleo diet, and they'll say okay, if you move the pasta off the plate and you're left with just the meatball, yeah, you're gonna leave that meal and be like, wow, I'm hungry. That's not good. I don't like being paleo, right? But you need to replenish it primarily with vegetation, right? It should have loads of, roasted vegetables, squash, maybe a sweet potato. It can have some salad. It should, have, broccoli. It should be a variety of lots of vegetation. That's going to fill you up in a good way, right? In terms of fiber, you're going to get a lot of the protein and move on in a more healthy, balanced way. Just protein, that's kind of like how, what was it, the Atkins diet? And that wasn't really how he wrote it. It just really got misinterpreted, and then people ran saying, I can't eat bread, but I can eat pounds of bacon, and I can wrap a sausage in bacon, and that's all and it went a little crazy. If you really read some of his earlier works, he was very much into you should be eating all kinds of vegetables all the time, but nobody wanted to hear that. They were like, he said bacon, so off we went. So, you need to be weighing that out too. And there are vegetables with protein. Even broccoli has some protein. It's not going to be enough, but it can definitely help you round out the picture a little bit so you don't feel like your option is only chicken or protein powder or nothing, right? You should be able to build it out a little bit. If you're cooking stuff in bone broth, that brings a little bit in. If you're adding some seeds, then that brings a little bit. You should be able to have a little meal that's very high protein, but a blend, a mixture of things. And I do see this at the office. If I say increase your protein and I don't break it down, everybody comes back tired of chicken. They all went home and only ate chicken, right? And I don't know why that is. I'm like, did I just say nothing but chicken? And they're like, well, I don't know, but what else is protein? So I had chicken for 6 weeks. I don't ever want to see a chicken. And I'm like, steak, pork, beans, seeds, peanut butter, we could go on and on and on, even before we get to the powders. And they're like, oh yeah, I hate chicken. I'm like, that's fine. We can do lots of things that are not chicken. So it just is people's go-to. Seafood, fish, on and on.
Quinoa is one of my favorite.
Quinoa? Yeah, quinoa is 9 grams protein per serving, which is a half scoop or something. So it's very dense with protein. A lot of fiber. Very filling. I think the first time I ever made quinoa, I made it like I make rice. And as you're eating, you're like, I can't continue. The mound, I keep eating it and it's not changing and it's still here. And,
What about dairy?
Dairy is at best a condiment, at best. A lot of people cannot tolerate dairy, which is very normal, right? As we outgrow dairy, that's more normal. High-grade yogurts, really snobby cheeses are sometimes okay for people because they maintain having some probiotics, some protein, and some enzymes. And then some of those people still can't tolerate that. So it's very person by person.
If you can tolerate it, then
it's a condiment.
I love dairy.
Does dairy love you? That's the question. And you tolerate it well, I wouldn't really mess with that with somebody, but more often than not, it doesn't work so well with people. Usually if there's a food, and this is just anecdotal for anybody that works in the nutritional metabolic industry, if there is a food that you will not give up, it's probably a problem food. So when people come in and they're like, I'll do anything to lose the weight, I'll do anything to get faster, I'll do anything, but do not take my fill in the blank. It's like, that just historically never goes well, right? And it's amazing, right? It's amazing when people latch on to what they want. So if in the world of like pop, like Diet Coke is a known like addictive disaster, right? More so than anything else, right? Some people might like Pepsi, they might like Mountain Dew, but like Diet Coke, there's an addictive component that is like none other. So when people come in and they're like, well, I just need it a little bit, I'm like, I'm gonna talk to you about your Diet Coke, and we're gonna use the asparagus, and then you're gonna realize you sound like a crazy person, right? Because you told me, I just need a little asparagus in the morning, just a little. I don't even have to have the whole spear. And, if I go to work, like I usually have some in my car just in case, because, if I get stuck in traffic, like I just need a little, just a little asparagus. So I keep a little under the seat. If my husband or my wife runs to the store, I just say, just pick up the small cans, like the mini cans, just, like the small little asparagus spears, like a little bundle, just in case, or I have a little bit at the office. So, usually there's like an asparagus spear in my drawer or something, right? And if that was that person, you'd be like, there is a nutso with the asparagus at the cubicle next to me. I don't know what the deal is, but there's like asparagus all over. She tucks it in things, it's in her purse, like whack job, right? But people do Diet Coke and don't even blink, but it's wacky, right? So if you just replace it with anything, if you're like, I'll do anything, but don't take the dairy, it's like, might not be too much. If you're like, I like dairy, sometimes I have it, well, that sounds like a little healthy relationship, right? So that's what you're trying to, think through what it is in your life that you're like, I could do anything, but I would die if it was this thing. It's usually like, start there. Yeah.
So if we go to your office, we would just get like blood tests done and
Yeah, we could do blood tests in the office. Yeah, work through stuff.
you tell us what you think is.
So a lot of the common blood tests I run, one would just be basic baseline tests. Red and white blood cells, CBC, iron levels, thyroid levels, lipid panel, your average just baseline yearly test. From there, another good test to do, especially if we're just analyzing general health and wellness, is a nutrient test. And this is actually, it's a blood test in the lab, but then the lab is breaking it down and they're looking at just your white blood cells. They're looking at your nutrient reserves. So this will be B vitamins, minerals, antioxidants. And that's a nice little thing to see, like just how is your tissue operating? How are you doing?
Is that a Nutrivell?
That's a different company. The one I use is SpectraCell, but they're pretty similar. Yeah.
I had done that, so
Yeah.
it's nice.
Right, because you're looking at tissue reserves, right? You're not just looking at what's going around in the blood. From there, that's sort of like the arrangement of like healthy-ish things. From there, we're going to be more addressing something you came in with, if there was. If you're like, I can't sleep at night and I'm falling asleep at my desk during the day, we're going to chase down some other things. Right? If you're like, I can't make it through a workout because I'm just crashing out, I'm having fevers every other week, then it's like, okay, we're looking at other things. But if people come in and just say like, I'm in good health, I am just really trying to do the best for myself and just, health and wellness, then those are probably the two things we focus on, and then walk through what you're eating and can we arrange it differently and how you feel and go from there. Yeah, fine tune things. Right. I will say that another group I work for is called BirthFit. I'm the regional director for BirthFit in Chicago, and we work with prenatal, pregnancy, and postpartum women for fitness and nutrition and all kinds of different groups. And what's amazing is I gave a webinar to our own staff, and there's like 42 of us nationwide and 2 internationally. I gave a nutrition lecture for them, and it was a little bit more not just foods, but more in the microbiome and little stuff like that, just because they're working with other women in their community. And then a lot of them set up consults with me. And so I'm thinking they just want better nutritional information, because that's what we're talking about, and that's generally what we cover. And every person that called in, and here they are supposedly the pillar of health in their community, they're a disaster, right? And it was re-shocking to me, I guess, because I had sort of like written them off as like, okay, you guys are in good health. A lot of them are gym owners. A lot of them are very visually, physically fit, right? And they're calling in, they're like, I barely ever get my period. I have headaches all the time. I can't digest anything. And it's like, hold on, like this is a whole nother ball of wax here, right? So physique isn't everything either. We're talking about a lecture like this, that's kind of the topic is best, fat, loss, and what's in the way. But sometimes even just looking at a person's physique that you think you want, like that's not always the picture of health either. So sometimes we do uncover all kinds of stuff. And I'll definitely have athletes come in saying, I want to be faster, I want to do this. But they come in and they have this like terrible history with their gut. They have a terrible lab test with thyroid, and it's like, we can't do any of that yet because you actually aren't well, right? So that's where we're going. We have to make you well before we can make you worry about being faster, right? So, yeah, that's the general kind of scope of things.